The alarm cut through the silence of the bridge at exactly 0400 hours. Taemin jerked awake at his station, his coffee mug sliding across the console. He blinked at the screens, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Something massive had just appeared on the sensors. Something that should not exist in this empty corner of space. Captain to the bridge. He called into the comm, his voice steadier than he felt. "We have a situation." The Infinite Horizon was 3 months into a routine survey mission of Sector 447 Omega, mapping dead space for the Vulcan Consortium. 17 alien species worked together under the consortium's banner, exploring and cataloging the galaxy. Taemin had signed up for the survey course because he wanted peace and quiet, not excitement. This sector was supposed to be boring. Nothing but dust and empty space for light years in every direction. Captain Velmoth arrived within minutes, his 4 eyes blinking independently as he studied the readouts. The captain was Vulcan, tall and covered in blue-gray scales that reflected the bridge lights. He had commanded deep space missions for 40 years and prided himself on never being surprised. But now his scales rippled with uncertainty. "That cannot be accurate," Velmoth said, his translator turning his clicks and whistles into standard language. "Run the scan again." Taemin had already run it 3 times. The results were the same. "Sir, there is a vessel out there. It is approximately 8 kilometers long. The hull composition does not match anything in our database. The energy signature is faint but stable. And according to the decay analysis, that ship is at least 20,000 years old." The bridge fell silent. 20,000 years ago, the oldest known civilization in the galaxy was still learning to make fire. The idea of a starship from that era was impossible. Could it be a natural formation? Asked Dayun, the ship's security chief. She had just arrived on the bridge, still fastening her uniform. Dayun was from a warrior species, broad-shouldered and cautious by nature. Her people did not believe in coincidences. "No," Taemin said firmly. "The geometry is too precise. It is definitely artificial." Captain Velmoth made a decision. "Change course. We will investigate. Dayun, prepare a security team. Taemin, keep scanning. I want to know everything about that ship before we get close." As the Infinite Horizon approached, the alien vessel became visible on the main screen. It was enormous, dwarfing their survey ship. The hull was dark, covered in strange patterns that might have been writing or decoration. Parts of the ship looked damaged, scarred by micrometeorite impacts and cosmic radiation. But the core structure appeared intact, preserved by some technology that had kept it from breaking apart over millennia. "There," said Hyan-Woo, the ship's xenarchaeologist. He had rushed to the bridge when he heard about the discovery. Hyan-Woo had spent his entire career studying the myths of lost civilizations. His hands shook as he pointed at the screen. "Those markings on the hull. I need a closer image." Taemin magnified the section. Strange symbols became visible, arranged in neat lines. Below them was something else. Words in a script that looked almost familiar, but was not in any current database. Hyan-Woo leaned closer, his breathing quick. "UNSS Wanderer's Promise," he read slowly. "Terra, Sol System." He turned to face the captain. "Sir, I know what this is. The legends speak of a precursor race that vanished from the galaxy 20,000 years ago. They were called the Bridge Builders. No one knew what happened to them. Most scientists believe they never existed. But this ship proves they were real." "What else do the legends say?" Captain Velmoth asked. "Not much," Hyan-Woo admitted. "The stories are fragments, pieces of myths passed down through dozens of civilizations. They say the precursors were explorers who wanted to unite different species. They built wonders across the galaxy. Then one day, they simply disappeared. Every single one of them gone in the span of a few years. They left behind ruins and mysteries, but no bodies, no records, nothing that explained where they went or why. Dayun crossed her arms. Maybe they died. 20,000 years is a long time. Then where are the bodies? Hyanwu countered. Where are the graves? The precursors had billions of people according to the old stories. You cannot hide that many deaths. Captain Velmuth studied the derelict ship. We will board it. Dayun, select your team. Hyanwu, you are coming with us. Taemin, you as well. I want your eyes on their technology. The boarding party suited up in the airlock bay. Taemin checked his equipment 3 times, nervous energy making his hands fidget. He had never been on a spacewalk outside controlled environments. Dayun noticed his anxiety and clasped his shoulder. Stay close to me, she said. I will keep you safe. They crossed the gap between ships using thruster packs, drifting through the void toward the ancient hull. Up close, the Wanderer's promise looked even more imposing. The metal was pitted and worn, but still solid. Dayun's team found an airlock and managed to force it open, using emergency overrides that somehow still worked after 20 millennia. The interior was dark. Their helmet lights cut through the blackness, revealing a corridor that looked frozen in time. The walls were smooth, made from some kind of composite material. Doors lined both sides, all sealed. The air was completely gone, drained into space thousands of years ago. Gravity systems are dead, Taemin reported, checking his scanner. Life support is offline. Power grid shows 0 activity. But the ship's structure is intact. Whatever kept it preserved is still working on some level. They moved deeper into the ship, following the main corridor. Hyanwu stopped at every door, examining the symbols and markings. These are words, he said. A written language. If I can decode it, we might learn who built this ship. They reached what appeared to be a habitation area. The doors here open more easily, manual releases still functional. Inside, they found living quarters designed for creatures that walked on 2 legs and had 2 arms. The proportions were similar to several species in the consortium, including Taemin's own people. Personal items floated in the 0 gravity. Strange objects that might have been books or data tablets. Clothing made from unknown fabrics. Pictures on the walls showing creatures that looked almost familiar. Bipedal beings with hair on their heads and skin in various shades. They were smiling in the images, gathered in groups, clearly intelligent and social. They look almost like my species, Taemin whispered. But different. The facial structure, the body proportions. Close but not quite the same. Hyanwu was examining a data terminal in the wall. This might still work. The system appears to be in some kind of standby mode. If I can access it. His fingers moved over the interface, trying different combinations. Suddenly, lights flickered on throughout the room. Everyone jumped, hands moving to weapons. But there was no threat, just the ship waking up after its long sleep. The terminal screen glowed, displaying symbols that began scrolling. I am in, Hyanwu breathed. I am accessing their database. This is incredible. There are logs here, thousands of them. Captain, these are ship's records. The last entry is dated. He paused, checking the date against galactic standard. 20,000 years ago, almost exactly. What does it say? Captain Velmuth demanded. Hyanwu's voice was shaking as he read the translated text. Captain's log, final entry. This is Commander Ji Wu of the UNSS Wanderer's Promise, Earth vessel, registry number 447. We have completed our mission. The great departure is beginning. By the time anyone finds this ship, we will be gone. Our species, our civilization, everything we were. We leave this vessel as a message and a warning. If you are reading this, then you have found us too late. But do not despair. Humanity will return when the galaxy needs us most. We promise you this. The boarding party stood in silence, processing what they had just learned. Somewhere in the darkness of the ship, systems continued to wake up, ancient machines stirring after 20,000 years of sleep. News of the Wanderer's promise spread through the consortium like fire through dry grass. Within a week, every major news network in 17 species was broadcasting images of the ancient human vessel. Scientists wanted to study it. Military commanders wanted to strip it for technology. Politicians argued about who had the right to claim it. Captain Velmoth received orders from the Vulcan High Council to hold position and allow research teams to board. The Infinite Horizon became a hub of activity as dozens of specialists arrived, each wanting to examine different parts of the derelict ship. Taemin found himself giving the same tour over and over, showing the newcomers through the corridors he had come to know well, but he spent his free time searching for something else. The ship's logs had mentioned a warning, and Commander Ji Woo's final words haunted him. Humanity will return when the galaxy needs us most. What did that mean? Why would the galaxy need them? And where had humanity gone? Hyan Wu was working around the clock, translating human text and learning their language. It was surprisingly easy to decode. The humans had left behind teaching programs designed to help other species understand them. Within days, Hyan Wu could read basic human writing. Within 2 weeks, he was reading their history. They called their world Earth. He explained to Taemin over a late-night meal in the mess hall. It orbited a star they named Sol. They were explorers, scientists, artists. They spread out into their local space, building colonies and stations. Then something happened. The records are unclear about what, but approximately 20,000 years ago, every human in the galaxy gathered their ships and left. The Great Departure, they called it. And they never came back. But why? Taemin asked. Why would an entire species just leave? The logs mention a threat, something called the Silence. But there are no details about what it was or where it came from. Just warnings to be prepared. Taemin could not stop thinking about those warnings. He began spending his off-duty hours exploring the deeper sections of the Wanderer's promise, searching for clues. Dayun often joined him, claiming she needed to ensure the ship was secure, but really she was just as curious as he was. 3 weeks after the initial discovery, Taemin found something unusual. Deep in the lower decks, past the engineering section and the cargo bays, there was a sealed door. Unlike the other doors on the ship, this one had no obvious way to open it. The metal was different, harder, and covered in human writing that Taemin could not read. He brought Hyan Wu down to examine it. The archaeologist studied the inscriptions carefully, running his fingers over the engraved letters. To those who come after, this is our legacy, he translated. Whatever is behind this door, the humans wanted us to find it. But they made sure we could not access it easily. Can you open it? Dayun asked. She had her weapon drawn, cautious as always. I am not sure I should, Hyan Wu said quietly. This feels like a tomb. We might be disturbing something sacred. But Taemin's curiosity won out. They left this ship for someone to find. They wanted us to open this door. Otherwise, why leave instructions? They spent hours examining the door, looking for any kind of mechanism or control panel. Dayun found what looked like pressure plates in the floor, arranged in a pattern. She stepped on them carefully, trying different combinations. Nothing happened for the first dozen attempts. Then, on her 13th try, something deep inside the walls began to hum. The sound grew louder. Lights flickered on in the corridor, bright white lights that had not worked in 20,000 years. The door shuddered, ancient hydraulics groaning as they pushed against rust and time. Slowly, painfully, the door began to slide open. "Get back!" Dayun shouted, pulling Taemin and Hyan-woo away from the entrance. They pressed against the far wall as the door continued opening, revealing a chamber beyond. Cool air rushed out, the first atmosphere they had encountered on the ship. The humans had left this section pressurized and sealed when nothing dangerous emerged. They cautiously entered the chamber. It was large, maybe 50 meters across, with a high ceiling. The walls were covered in screens and control panels. In the center of the room stood a pedestal with a holographic projector on top. And as they approached it, the projector activated light coalesced into the shape of a human woman. She wore a dark uniform with symbols on the shoulders. Her face was serious but not unkind. When she spoke, the ship's translation systems converted her words into language they could understand. "Greetings, travelers. My name is Commander Ji-woo. If you are seeing this message, then you have found the Wanderer's promise and opened a legacy chamber. That means my people are gone, and you are the ones who must carry our burden forward. I'm sorry for that, but we had no choice." The hologram began walking around the chamber, gesturing at the displays. 20,000 years ago, by your time, humanity encountered something in the deep space between galaxies. We called it the Silence. It was not a natural phenomenon. It was alive, intelligent, and hungry. It consumed entire star systems, not just destroying them, but erasing them from existence. No debris, no radiation, nothing. Just empty space where civilizations had been. Taemin felt his blood run cold. Dayun's hand tightened on her weapon. Hyan-woo was recording everything, his eyes wide with fear and fascination. Commander Ji-woo continued. "We fought the Silence for decades. Nothing worked. Weapons passed through it. Shields meant nothing. It simply absorbed everything it touched. We realized conventional warfare was useless. So we developed something else. Something terrible. This ship contains the schematics and the control systems for what we called the Resonance Engine. It is a weapon designed to destroy the Silence completely. But it requires a power source that we could barely comprehend. It requires conscious thought, billions of minds working together, channeled through the engine and converted into pure destructive energy." The hologram stopped, facing them directly. Humanity chose to become that power source. Every human being, across every world and station, volunteered to upload their consciousness into the Resonance Engine. We knew it would mean our extinction, but we also knew it was the only way to stop the Silence from consuming the entire galaxy. The day we activated the engine, 10 billion human souls merged into one massive burst of energy. We fired the weapon. We thought we had won. There was a long pause. The hologram's expression shifted to something like regret. But we were wrong. The weapon hurt the Silence badly. We wounded it, forced it to retreat. But we did not destroy it. Our sacrifice was not enough. The Silence fled into the dark spaces between galaxies to heal. We knew it would return eventually. We just did not know when. Commander Ji-woo's image flickered. That is why we left this ship. It is both a memorial and a weapon system. If the Silence returns, the Wanderer's promise will detect it. The ship will reactivate and guide whoever finds it to Earth, our home world. There you will find the Resonance Engine, still functional, still waiting. The coordinates are stored in the ship's navigation system. And if you are seeing this message, then the Silence has returned. I am sorry. I wish we could have finished the job. But now the burden falls to you. The hologram began to fade. Find Earth, protect each other. And remember that humanity died so that life could continue. Honor us by living. Commander Ji-woo, UNSS Wanderer's Promise, signing off. The light vanished, leaving them in the dim glow of the activated control panels. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then alarms began blaring throughout the infinite horizon. The emergency tones cutting through their shock. Taemin's communicator crackled. All personnel, return to ship immediately. We have detected spatial anomalies in sectors 442 through 445. Multiple systems have stopped transmitting. Long-range sensors show. The voice paused, confused. Sir, the sensors show nothing. Where those star systems should be, there is just empty space. It is like they were never there at all. Daeum and Taemin locked eyes. They both understood what was happening. The silence had returned, exactly as Commander Ji-woo had warned. And now they had to decide whether to follow the coordinates to a dead world, hoping to find a weapon that had failed once before, or watch as the darkness consumed everything they knew. Captain Velmoth's voice came through the comm. Prepare the ship for immediate departure. I am calling an emergency council meeting. We need to discuss what we do next. And somebody find out if this ancient human ship can actually fly, because I have a feeling we are going to need it. The Vulcan High Council argued for 3 days before making their decision. Some members wanted to flee in the opposite direction from the silence. Others wanted to gather the fleet and fight. But in the end, they voted to follow the coordinates from the Wanderer's Promise. 6 ships would make the journey to Earth, including the ancient human vessel itself. Taemin had barely slept since discovering the legacy chamber. He spent every waking hour studying the Wanderer's Promise, learning its systems through the teaching programs left behind by the humans. The ship was responding to him in ways it did not respond to others. When he touched the controls, they lit up. When he spoke commands in broken human language, the ship obeyed. It was as if the vessel had been waiting for someone to wake it up properly. You have a gift for this, Hyan-woo said, watching Taemin work. The ship trusts you. Ships do not trust people, Taemin replied. But he knew what Hyan-woo meant. There was a connection forming between him and the ancient vessel, something he could not explain. When he walked the corridors now, he sometimes heard whispers in his mind, like voices from very far away. He had not told anyone about that yet. The expedition fleet departed on the first day of the 4th month since the discovery. The Infinite Horizon took the lead, with 5 other consortium vessels following in formation. The Wanderer's Promise came last, piloted by Taemin through the interface he had learned to use. The human ship was slow to start, its engines needing time to warm up after millennia of sleep. But once it began moving, it flew with surprising grace. The journey would take 6 weeks through known space, then another 4 weeks through regions that existed on no current star charts. The route took them past the edges of civilization, toward the galactic rim where few ships ever traveled. They were only 10 days out when they found the first human ruins. It was a station orbiting a dead star, its hull cracked but still recognizable as human construction. The fleet stopped to investigate, and what they found troubled everyone. The station had been a colony, capable of supporting thousands of people. But like the Wanderer's Promise, it was empty. No bodies, no signs of violence, nothing to indicate what had happened to the inhabitants. Just empty rooms and corridors, preserved in the vacuum of space. Hyan-woo explored the station's data archives and found records, dating back 20,000 years. This was called Station Kepler, he reported. It was a research facility studying exotic matter. The last logged entry matches the same date as the Wanderer's Promise. They mentioned the Great Departure. Everyone was preparing to leave, to join the others at the resonance engine. They sounded almost peaceful about it, like they had accepted their fate. An entire species committing mass suicide, Daeun said quietly. I cannot imagine making that choice. It was not suicide, Taemin argued. They sacrificed themselves to save everyone else. That is different. They found more human sites as they traveled. Abandoned colonies on barren worlds. Derelict ships drifting in the void. Automated mining stations still operating after 20,000 years with no one to collect their output. Each discovery painted a picture of a civilization that had been vast and advanced, spreading across this entire region of space. Before vanishing in a single coordinated exodus, the humans had left messages everywhere, carved into station walls, encoded in data crystals, painted on the hulls of their ships. The same words repeated over and over. We are the bridge builders. We connect what was to what will be. Remember us. Haiyan Wu collected every message, every fragment of human history he could find. They wanted to be remembered, he said. They knew they were going to disappear, but they could not bear the thought of being forgotten. So they left pieces of themselves behind, hoping someone would find them and know that humans had existed. But not everyone in the fleet was moved by human sentiment. 3 weeks into the journey, tensions began rising. Equipment started malfunctioning on the consortium ships. Small things at first. A navigation system glitching. Life support hiccuping. Communication delays. Then the problems got worse. Dae-yoon led an investigation after a power failure. Nearly killed half the crew on the Eternal Vigil, one of the escort vessels. What she found made no sense. Microscopic machines smaller than dust particles had infiltrated every ship in the fleet except the Wanderer's Promise. They were breaking down systems from the inside, slowly and methodically. They are not human in origin, she reported to Captain Volmoth. I compared them to the nanotechnology we found in the human ruins. These are different. More aggressive. More destructive. Could it be the silence? The captain asked. I do not know. But whatever it is, it followed us from the areas where the anomalies were detected. We brought something with us. The fleet increased speed, racing toward the coordinates. They were still 3 weeks away from Earth when the Eternal Vigil sent out a distress call. The microscopic machines had reached critical systems. The ship was losing power across all decks. Tay-men watched from the bridge of the Wanderer's Promise as the Eternal Vigil went dark. All its lights died at once. The vessel began drifting, no longer under power. Captain Velmoth ordered an immediate rescue operation. But before they could launch shuttles, something appeared on the sensors. It was not a ship. It was not matter in any conventional sense. It was an absence, a hole in space where stars should have been visible. The darkness spread like ink in water, moving toward the disabled vessel with terrible purpose. Move away from it, Taemin shouted into the comm. Everyone get away from the Eternal Vigil now. But it was too late. The darkness touched the ship, and the vessel began to come apart. Not exploding, not burning. Simply disassembling, molecule by molecule, atom by atom. The hull vanished first, then the internal structure, then the crew still trapped inside. In less than a minute, the Eternal Vigil and everyone aboard had ceased to exist. Where the ship had been, there was now only empty space. The silence had found them. The fleet scattered, engines pushing to maximum speed. The darkness pursued, moving faster than any ship could travel. It was only the intervention of the Wanderer's Promise that saved them. Taemin activated systems he barely understood, ancient human weapons designed for this exact threat. Energy beams lanced out from the old ship, striking the darkness. The silence recoiled, hurt but not destroyed. It gave them enough time to jump to faster-than-light speed, leaving the entity behind. They jumped directly to the coordinates, skipping the planned stops along the way. Better to arrive early than not arrive at all. When they dropped out of faster-than-light travel, a yellow star filled their screens. Orbiting that star was a blue and green world, exactly where the coordinates had indicated. Earth, the human home. World scans showed a planet that was intact and preserved. Cities still stood on the continents. Vegetation covered large areas. But there were no power signatures, no communications, no life signs. Earth was a tomb, beautiful and dead. "Look at the orbital space," Hayam-Wu said, pointing at his screen. "There are thousands of satellites and stations. Some kind of network surrounding the entire planet. All dormant. As the fleet entered Earth's orbit, the network activated. Thousands of automated systems came online simultaneously. Weapons platforms and shield generators and scanners, all turning toward the incoming ships. For a moment, Taemin thought they were about to be fired upon. Then a message broadcast on all frequencies. "Welcome back, children of the stars. The last sentinel awaits. Please proceed to coordinates 37.5665 north, 126.978 east. This is Earth. Humanity's promise is kept." Taemin checked the location. It is on one of the larger continents. A peninsula. The database says this region was once called Korea. "Then that is where we go," Captain Velmuth decided. "Prepare landing parties. And bring atmosphere suits. We do not know what we will find down there." As they descended through Earth's atmosphere, Taemin looked out at the world below. It was beautiful, this planet that had birthed humanity. Rivers and mountains, forests and oceans. Cities that had stood empty for 20,000 years, waiting for inhabitants who would never return. And somewhere down there, in a facility on the Korean peninsula, something called the Last Sentinel was waiting to explain how they could stop the silence before it consumed everything they knew. The landing party touched down in what had once been a great city. Ancient buildings rose on all sides, their windows dark and empty. Plants had grown through cracks in the streets, nature slowly reclaiming what humans had built. But the structure they sought was different. It stood at the city's center, a massive facility that hummed with power despite 20,000 years of abandonment. "Something is still running inside," Taemin said, checking his scanner. "Active power generation. Computer systems. Life support. It is like someone just stepped out yesterday." Dayun led the way with her security team, weapons ready. Hyan-Wu followed close behind, recording everything. Captain Velmuth brought up the rear, his 4 eyes scanning for threats. The entrance doors opened automatically as they approached, recognizing them as expected visitors. The interior was lit with soft white light. Clean, climate-controlled air greeted them when they removed their helmets. The walls were white, marked with human writing that Hayam-Wu could now read. "Research Division 7, he translated. "Consciousness Transfer Laboratory. Project Resonance." This is where they built the weapon, Taemin realized. They followed corridor after corridor, descending deeper into the facility. The architecture was strange to their eyes, but clearly designed with purpose. Every room they passed had been carefully preserved, equipment maintained by automated systems that still functioned perfectly. Finally, they reached a central chamber. It was enormous, easily 100 meters across. Machinery covered the walls, complex beyond anything in the current galaxy. Cables as thick as tree trunks ran up into the ceiling and down into the floor. And in the center of it all stood a pillar of crystalline material that pulsed with inner light. "That is the resonance engine," said a voice from nowhere and everywhere at once. Everyone spun around, weapons raised. Then a woman appeared, simply materializing in the center of the room. She looked human, wearing clothing similar to what they had seen in the old pictures. But there was something wrong about her. She was too perfect, too still. No breathing, no small movements, no imperfections. "My name is Li Jin," the woman said. "I am the last sentinel. I have been waiting a very long time to meet you." "You are not real," Dayun said, keeping her weapon trained on the figure. "I am as real as I need to be," the Jin replied with a slight smile. "I am an artificial consciousness, based on the uploaded mind of a human scientist who volunteered to remain behind. My original self died 20,000 years ago, but her memories and personality were preserved in the facility's systems. I have maintained this place and waited for someone to return. Captain Velmuth lowered his weapon. You know why we are here. The silence has returned. Yes, I detected its presence the moment it re-entered this galaxy. That is why the Wanderer's promise reactivated. That is why you found the ship and followed the coordinates here. Everything happened exactly as we planned 20,000 years ago. Then, you can tell us how to stop it, Taemin said. How to use the resonance engine. The Jinn's expression shifted to something like sorrow. I can, but first, you need to understand what happened. You need to know the truth about humanity's sacrifice, because you will have to make the same choice. She gestured, and holographic images filled the chamber. The history of humanity played out before them. Their rise from a single planet, their spread across the stars, their discovery of other intelligent species. The humans had been explorers and scientists, artists and dreamers. They had wanted to connect different civilizations, to build bridges between species that would never have met otherwise. Then they had encountered the silence. It came from beyond the galactic edge, the Jinn explained. An entity older than any known civilization. It feeds on consciousness itself, on the organized thought patterns that make up intelligent life. It does not just destroy matter. It erases information, memory, history, everything that makes a species unique. We fought it for decades. Nothing worked. Conventional weapons passed through it harmlessly. It simply absorbed energy and grew stronger. The hologram showed human ships being consumed, worlds going dark. The silence spreading like a cancer through human space. So we developed the resonance engine. We discovered that consciousness, when properly channeled, could be converted into a form of energy that the silence could not absorb. In fact, it was toxic to the silence. If we could generate enough of this energy, we could destroy the entity completely. But the power requirements, Hyanwu said quietly. How much consciousness did it need? 10 billion human minds, the Jinn said. Our entire species. Every man, woman, and child. We all uploaded ourselves into the engine voluntarily. It was not a decision made by governments or leaders. It was a choice every individual made. We knew what it meant. We knew we would not survive. But we also knew that if we did nothing, the silence would eventually consume the entire galaxy. Every species, every civilization, every thought and dream that had ever existed. We could not allow that. The hologram showed the final days of humanity. People saying goodbye to their worlds, their homes, everything they had built. Walking into transfer chambers peacefully. Lying down and closing their eyes as their consciousness was extracted and stored in the resonance engine's crystalline matrix. We fired the weapon on the last day of our existence. 10 billion souls merged into one massive pulse of energy. We thought it would be enough. We thought we had won. The hologram showed the energy wave expanding from Earth, a brilliant light that washed across star systems. The silence recoiled, writhing in pain as the weapon struck it. But we failed. The weapon hurt the silence badly. It fled, wounded but alive, into the dark spaces between galaxies. We realized too late that we had needed more power. Perhaps twice what we had. Perhaps 3 times. We will never know exactly. Humanity was gone. All that remained was me, left behind to maintain the facility and wait. The Jinn turned to face them directly. The resonance engine still functions. It can be fired again, but it requires the same fuel it required before. Conscious minds, willingly given. The calculations suggest we need approximately 3 billion sentient beings to generate enough power for a second firing. That is more than a third of your consortium's total population. The chamber fell silent. Everyone understood what she was saying. To destroy the silence, billions of people would have to die just as humanity had died. That is insane, Dayun said. You are asking us to commit genocide against ourselves. I am asking you to make the same choice humanity made. We believed life was worth dying for. We believed that the future of the galaxy was more important than our present. Was we wrong? Taemin moved closer to the resonance engine, studying its structure. Is there no other way? No alternative power source? I have spent 20,000 years searching for one, the Jinn said. There is nothing else that produces the right kind of energy. Consciousness is unique. It is the one thing the silence cannot absorb or destroy through direct contact. That is why it must be used as a weapon. Hyung-woo was reading the technical specifications displayed on the walls. Wait, these calculations show something. The original firing used involuntary transfers, consciousness taken by force at the moment of natural death. But this notation here suggests that voluntary transfers, where the subject fully understands and accepts the process, produce a more efficient energy conversion. If enough people willingly choose to sacrifice themselves, understanding exactly what they are doing, it might require fewer overall volunteers. The Jinn nodded slowly. That is correct. The original plan was to use dying humans, those at the end of their natural lives. But the invasion happened faster than expected. We had to take everyone, willing or not. If the next firing uses only willing volunteers who truly understand the sacrifice, the efficiency could be 30 to 40% higher. We might need only 2 billion instead of 3. Only 2 billion, Captain Volmoth repeated. You say that as if it is a small number. Compared to the entire galaxy, it is, the Jinn said simply. The silence will not stop. It has healed over the past 20,000 years. It is stronger now than when we fought it. If it is not destroyed completely, it will consume every living thing in this galaxy. Every species. Every child. Every hope for the future. Gone, erased, forgotten. Is 2 billion lives too high a price to prevent that? They stood in the chamber, surrounded by the technology of a dead civilization, wrestling with an impossible choice. Outside, the silence was spreading. Systems were going dark. The entity was hunting them, and soon it would find Earth. A decision had to be made, and it had to be made quickly. Taemin made his decision while the others were still arguing. He walked to the communications terminal in the resonance chamber and activated the long-range broadcast system. Before anyone could stop him, he was transmitting to every ship, every station, every inhabited world in the consortium's network. My name is Taemin, Survey Officer of the Infinite Horizon, he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. I am broadcasting from Earth, home world of humanity. 20,000 years ago, an entire species sacrificed themselves to save the galaxy from something called the silence. They failed. The silence has returned. It is spreading through our space right now, consuming worlds, erasing civilizations. If we do nothing, everything we know will cease to exist. He explained the resonance engine. He explained what it required. He did not hide the terrible truth or try to soften it. 2 billion conscious minds, voluntarily given, converted into energy and fired as a weapon. It was the only way to stop the silence permanently. I am not ordering anyone to volunteer, Taemin continued. I am not even asking. I am simply telling you the truth. Humanity believed that life was worth dying for. They believed that the future mattered more than the present. In a few hours, I will enter one of the transfer chambers and add my consciousness to the resonance engine. Anyone who wishes to join me is welcome. Anyone who wishes to survive and take their chances with the silence is equally welcome. This is not a decision anyone else can make for you. He ended the broadcast and turned to face the shocked expressions of his companions. What have you done? Captain Velmoth demanded. You have just told billions of people to commit suicide. I told them the truth, Tamin replied. They deserve to know what we are facing. They deserve to make their own choice. Dayun grabbed his arm. You cannot do this. You cannot just give up your life. I am not giving up. I am trading it for something better. For a future where children can grow up without fear. For a galaxy where species can meet and learn from each other, just like the humans wanted. That seems like a fair trade to me. The responses began arriving within minutes. The first came from a scientist on a Vulcan research station. She was old, near the end of her natural life, and she wanted her death to mean something. She would volunteer. Then more messages came. A warrior who had lost his family to the Silence's advance. A poet who wanted her final act to be creation rather than destruction. A teacher who believed in the future more than the present. Within an hour, 10,000 volunteers had registered. Within 6 hours, 1 million. Within a day, the number had reached 50 million and was still climbing. Ships began arriving at Earth from every corner of consortium space. They came in waves, hundreds and then thousands, filling the orbital space around humanity's home world. People of 17 different species, all converging on a planet they had never heard of until recently. All coming to make the same sacrifice humanity had made 20,000 years before the Jinn watched the arrivals with something like wonder on her artificial face. They are coming. I did not think they would. I thought they would choose to run or fight. But they are coming. Humanity showed them the way, Haiyan Wu said quietly. They showed that sacrifice is not surrender. It is the ultimate expression of hope. The Vulcan High Council tried to stop it at first. They sent orders to close the jump points, to prevent ships from reaching Earth. But the orders were ignored. Even military vessels disobeyed, their crews choosing to join the exodus. The wave of volunteers could not be stopped by the end of the second week. 2 billion volunteers had arrived at Earth. They landed on every continent, filling the ancient human cities with new life one last time. The Jinn activated thousands of transfer chambers across the planet, facilities that had waited 20,000 years to fulfill their purpose again. Te-Min spent his final days helping coordinate the process. He made sure everyone understood what they were volunteering for. He answered questions. He comforted those who were afraid. Dayun stayed by his side the entire time, though she refused to volunteer herself. Someone needs to survive, she told him. Someone needs to remember what happened here and tell the story. That will be my purpose. Then remember us well, Tamin said, embracing her. On the final day, Tamin walked through the streets of the ancient city. He saw volunteers from every species, gathered in groups, saying goodbye to each other and to the world. Some were crying. Others were singing. Many were simply quiet, contemplating the magnitude of what they were about to do. He found Captain Velmoth, standing near one of the transfer facilities. The Vulcan captain had volunteered, despite his initial opposition. I could not ask others to do something I was not willing to do myself, Velmoth explained. That is what leadership means. Haiyan Wu had also volunteered, though he had spent his final days recording everything, creating a complete archive of both the human sacrifice and this new one. Stories matter, he said. Even if I will not be around to tell them, someone will find the records and know what we did. The transfer process was peaceful. Volunteers lay down in chambers filled with soft light. The machines were gentle, extracting consciousness without pain, converting it into pure energy and storing it in the crystalline matrix of the resonance engine. Tae-Min was in the final group to transfer. He closed his eyes and felt himself dissolving, his thoughts and memories becoming something else, something greater than he had ever been alone. For a moment, he was aware of others around him. Billions of minds, all merging together while still remaining individual. He could feel Captain Velmost's determination, Hyan Wu's curiosity, the teacher's hope, the warrior's courage, and beneath it all, faint but present, he could feel the echo of 10 billion human souls who had walked this path 20,000 years before Dr. Jin activated the resonance engine for the second and final time. The crystalline matrix blazed with light as 2 billion conscious minds merged into one massive surge of energy. The weapon fired, a wave of pure conscious force that expanded from Earth at speeds faster than light itself. The silence had reached Earth's solar system, a dark cloud advancing to consume the planet and everyone who remained. But the weapon struck it head-on with the full force of 2 billion willing sacrifices. The entity tried to absorb the energy as it had absorbed everything else. But this was different. This was consciousness purified and weaponized. Everything the silence fed on turned against it. The darkness began to break apart. It writhed and shrieked in frequencies that shattered sensors across the fleet. The silence was being torn apart, its structure dissolving as the wave of conscious energy ripped through it. The entity that had survived for countless billions of years, that had consumed entire galaxies, finally met something it could not defeat. Within an hour, the silence was gone. Completely, utterly, permanently destroyed. The darkness lifted from the regions it had infected. Stars shone again where they had been hidden. And across the galaxy, species that had been preparing for extinction suddenly found themselves with a future. Dayun stood on Earth's surface, watching the sky clear. She had survived, as had millions of others who had chosen not to volunteer or who had arrived too late. They were the ones who would rebuild, who would remember, who would tell the story of what had happened here. Is it done? Someone asked over the comm. It was one of the technicians who had stayed behind to monitor the weapon. It is done, Dayun confirmed. The silence is destroyed. Then why am I still receiving signals from the resonance engine? Dayun rushed back to the facility. Inside the chamber, the crystalline matrix was still glowing, pulsing with light in a steady rhythm. The Jinn stood before it, her artificial face showing genuine confusion. They are still there, the Jinn whispered. The consciousness matrix did not disperse. The volunteers did not die. They transformed. As they watched, the crystal began projecting images. Faces appeared, thousands of them, then millions. Every volunteer who had entered the chambers was present, aware, conscious. They were speaking, their voices merging into a chorus that filled the chamber. We are still here, they said together. We did not die. We became something new. Taemin's voice emerged from the chorus, recognizable but changed. We merged with the weapon, with the energy, with each other and with the humans who came before us. We exist now in a different state. Not physical, but not gone. We can see everything, feel everything. We are part of the universe itself now. You transcended, Hyan Wu's voice added. You did not sacrifice your consciousness. You elevated it, the chorus continued. We will watch over the galaxy now. We will protect it. And we will never let you walk alone. This is our promise, given freely. We are the bridge builders now, connecting what was to what will. Dayun felt tears running down her face. They had not died. They had become something beyond death, beyond physical form. The sacrifice had not been an ending but a transformation. Over the following months, the survivors made contact with the transformed consciousness many times. The volunteers could communicate, could share knowledge and wisdom beyond anything possible in physical form. They had become guardians, watching over the galaxy. They had saved monuments were built on Earth to honor both humanity and the 2 billion volunteers. The Wanderer's promise remained in orbit, maintained as a museum and memorial.